Next methodology, which is very, very popular methodology, that is Agile methodology. The Agile methodology is a way to manage project by breaking it up into several phases. I'll explain this to you. First, let's read the principles of Agile methodology. Principles of Agile methodology are individuals and interactions over processes and tools. When they started making one new methodology, they named it as Agile. Um, whatever the shortcomings of previous methodology was, they wanted to cover that. And in order to cover those shortcomings, they figured it out. The problem was that we were more focused on processes and tools rather than focusing on individuals and the interactions. What is the meaning of individuals and interactions? That means they said it's a good idea that, team talks to each other, they interact with each other or with different stakeholders, with client. Let's just interact more so that we understand project more rather than just focusing on processes and tools. It's a good idea to understand what actually client requires. So there was good individual interactions with client, with other stakeholders to understand the project better. So when they started making the manifesto, I'll call it manifesto of Agile, they said, okay, let's do this thing. We will focus more on individual and interactions, we'll not focus on processes and tools more. Then they said, okay, let's focus on working software over comprehensive documentation. If you noticed, I told you in waterfall methodology, the good thing was there was a lot of documentation. And because they want to get into a lot of documentation, they forget that, they want working software in a limited time. So the more emphasis was given to documentation, not to working software. But here in Agile methodology, they said we will be focused on working software, not on the documentation. So that is the reason there is very least documentation in Agile methodology. Then they said, okay, third point they want to keep there is customer collaboration over contract negotiations. Most of the time they were negotiating on contracts. Right, when we discussed SDLC also, I told you, when business analyst will go back and will talk to client or product owner will go back and speak with client and say, sorry, we cannot do it. Let's negotiate on it. So the more the emphasis was there on negotiations rather than collaboration with customer. But in Agile, they said, let's collaborate with customer, try to understand his needs more. And then we will understand what he requires and let's give him best solution, rather than negotiating what we want. Next point was responding to change over following a plan. Best thing I like about Agile methodology is change of requirement is super easy in it. So responding to change over following a plan. If you remember, we just discussed waterfall methodology that we followed a plan. First, we have to do requirements, then analysis, then design, then coding, then testing, and then implementation. But what if as a client, I want change of requirement? I cannot speak about it because I think my project is already started, but I'm not flexible as a client in this type of methodology because I have to think twice, thrice if I want even a single change. But when they developed manifesto of Agile methodology, they said, okay, let's focus on, flexibility of client. If client wants change of requirement, we should be able to give him without harming our processes also. So they said, okay, let's respond to change over just following a typical plan. So these were few pointers they want to focus on when they wanted to start with some new methodology, and they named it as Agile methodology. This line, I'm coming back to it. The Agile methodology is a way to manage a project by breaking it up into several phases. So this complete typical process, they broke it into small phases, which I'm going to discuss later with you. But remember, we are not typically now following the typical SDLC, but of course it is SDLC. As I've told you, when I was telling you the definition of methodology, we are following SDLC, but it is just telling you the way of proceeding with it. Some follow in a linear way, some follow in a parallel way, and some follow by breaking it into the small several phases. And that is what the Agile methodology is. I will make you understand this as a story. So let's understand this with real-time story. Let me introduce you to Richard. He runs On-Site Learning Institute to teach computer skill development. All his audience were local to his institute location. But later he found many are inquiring to get enrolled with Richard, but they were living far from Richard's institute and location. Richard thought of starting online classes because he found lots of target audience when it is online. But there was a lot of issues with the online transition. What was the issue? He found a lot of issues in this transition from on-site to online, like dependency on third-party tool for video communications. Progress monitoring was hard. Even enrolling student was also very clumsy process. He had website, no doubt. Richard had website, but it was just one-page website. And it was never designed by keeping in mind the remote audience. Then he thought, okay, why not I do this thing? Let me just switch to something called maybe LMS management, learning management system, where I can track my students much effectively as compared to just having the online meetings. In this LMS, he wished to have many of the features, like he wanted to give his exclusive videos to his own students only, rather than sharing on some shared platforms. He wanted to monitor progress of the student, attendance of student, online, on-site, both. So he said, okay, what to do now? He get into the search of getting his software or his application developed. He kept on calling different software development companies to get a quote. Then finally, he met Jenny. Jenny was working as a product owner in one of the software development companies. He said, you know what, I want one of the software to be developed for my students so that my online and on-site students both can get full advantage of it. Jenny said, okay, please let me know your requirements. So Richard started telling the requirements by saying, you know what, I want students should be able to enroll, they should be able to pay, and there should be a complete platform for every student. They should have their account in the website. They can explore my online videos, recorded videos. If they miss any session, I should be able to track their attendance. Jenny said, yes, okay, we can do that. This project will take at least 2 to 3 months. Richard was like, 3 months, that's it? Because last time when I was getting my website prepared, I mean, designed and developed, it took 6 to 7 months. And this website is not even LMS, it's just one-page site. It took so many days to, so many months, I'll say rather, to develop it. Why it is just 3 months? I'm happy that you're taking 3 months for it, but how come the process is so shorter? I mean, is it like a scam, or is it actually you will take 3 months? Jerry said, it will take 3 months because your previous website took 6 months because that company might be following waterfall methodology, in which requirement was gathered first, and then the design was there, then development was there, and if after development the testing was there. And if you ask any change of requirement, they cannot do it. Richard said, yes, I asked them that, I want one change of requirement, but then they totally refused. They said, if you want change of requirement, it will be altogether a new project. So he said, yes, that happened with me. So Jenny said, in this case, we are following Agile methodology. He said, what is Agile methodology? So we will be starting with understanding of it. So Jenny said, I will be gathering requirements from you. So yes, I will start with requirement gathering. But out of these requirements, I will be first find out MVP. Now, Richard was like, what is MVP? MVP is most viable product. Most viable product. Now, what is most viable product? Most viable product means, Jenny said, I will be just gazing that which requirements are most important requirements which can make your product or your website up and running. That's most viable product we will be making by just first focusing on the requirements which can make this software up and running. Rather than working on everything together, we will just prioritize the requirements first. We will find out that these requirements are something, if we put them together, at least you can start working with the software, and then later we can add rest of the requirements into it. So what is MVP? If you look at this example here, this is typical way of developing a software. This is, you can say, is just like waterfall methodology. Tire is there. From tire, they're making a base, then they made a fan, then the car is designed or developed. And user cannot do anything till the time car is not designed. It might take 1 month, it might take 2 months, 6 months, but user is sitting idle till the time car is not designed. But if you look at this here, this is called MVP. When he got tire, started with skate, started with scooter, cycle, motorcycle, and then the car is there. But till that time, client is up and running. So that means MVP means most important requirements will be gathered. Software development company who is developing this software will make sure that at least client can start his website. And then later they can keep on adding the products into it, or whatever features client wants into it. So this is called MVP. So in this case, the software, like Jenny promised to Richard, that software will be up and running in 3 months only, because they will be starting with the most viable product. And then later in different releases, they can keep on adding the rest of the products into it. Rather than waiting for 6 months and then starting with the software, you are starting in the beginning only. So this is the most viable product. So that is most viable product features. This is how they will be starting. And in this case, Jenny will first of all prioritize the requirements so that this website can keep going first with the minimal products in it. Then she can add later the products which are not that important, but actually it is required as per Richard's requirement. But she will make the product running in 2 to 3 months by just implementing the minimum viable product, minimum viable features, you can say. Richard was quite happy with the explanation which Jenny gave. So Richard said, okay, let's get started. Tell me what you require from my side. Jenny said, first of all, I want to speak with stakeholders. What is stakeholders? So stakeholders means people who will get impacted with this software, or people who are using this software. They are stakeholders for Jenny. He said, okay, so my students? Jenny said, yes. He said, then my staff? Jenny said, yes. Because staff is the one who will be using it. Students are the one who will be impacting as well as using it also. So Richard said, okay, let's arrange meeting with stakeholders so that you can get the requirements from them. Jenny said, yes, because then it's going to be complete market research. I'll be understanding the requirement in a better way, and then we can deliver an effective software rather than just giving you a software. So Richard said, okay, let's arrange a meeting. So they decided up on a meeting with his team, with his students. I mean, some of the on-site students who can give them better idea about the software. So after this, Jenny went back and Jenny spoke to his business analyst. Now here, this is called business analyst, because there is a lot of confusion. People think product owner and business analyst are same thing. No. Again, it depends upon the company they would like to hire or not, but still business analyst is different role in Agile, and product owner is different role in Agile. Product owner is the one who is talking to stakeholders, understanding their requirements better, and then for documentation purpose, filling up the gaps, having a proper flow, business analysts assist product owner. So now Jenny will go back and speak with Scott. Scott is working as a business analyst in this company. Jenny will say, we got a project. At least we need to speak with the team of the, team member of Richard. We need to speak with the students of Richard to get the requirements better. Scott said, yes, let's get started with it. Now, who is Scott? Scott is business analyst. Business analysts are facilitators. investigators, and fact checkers. They find gaps and perform traceability and impacts analysis, working closely with product owner to determine the scope of the project and establish the requirements and standard of the project must meet. So they are the one who will be assisting the product owner in understanding the requirements better. Product owner is the one who understands product better. Business analyst is the one who must understand requirements better. So that is the reason Jenny will take Scott with him for the meeting. So now in this meeting, who will be the participants? Scott, business analyst. Jenny, of course, product owner. Team, Richard's students, Richard's working team, office team, and of course, Richard. They will be sitting together and try to find out the requirements or maybe the gaps in the original system so that they bridge those gaps. So Jenny found that most of the time, students are not able to get the registration information online. They are not able to enroll. There are different types of training modes, but students are able to just click on one. There should be different training modes. If student wish to go on site or he wish to go online, student were finding this a lot of gap in the website. Online students said that, we wish to get online training, but there is no option over there. It was just one training. So Jenny start listening to them, understanding the requirement, whereas Scott is writing the requirements. Scott, business analyst, is also sitting in a meeting and he's writing down all the requirements by listening them carefully. What happened after this? After this, Jenny will take all the requirements and she will be discussing with his team. So who will be participants of this team? When Jenny took the contract or spoke with Richard, she took all the requirements with the help of Scott. She will be going back her team and discussing everything with them. Now, who these people are? So Scott, as you know, is a business analyst. Alan is Scrum Master. Guys, this is the name they have given in this particular setup of Agile. The Scrum Master is a person who is responsible for proper management of this Agile methodology. He is the one who tried to find out the backlogs in Agile methodology and try to work with his team. Now, who is his team? His team is this. His team consists of, this is Scrum team, guys. His Scrum team consists of developers, testers, business analyst, architect, that is software architect, developers again, there could be multiple developers in a team. So this is Scrum team. Now let's understand roles of Agile methodology one by one. Product owner. As you understand, Jenny in this case was responsible to speak with the client, stakeholders, and understand their requirements better. Then we have business analyst. Business analyst is part of Scrum team. It's a team, guys. The name given in Agile is called Scrum team, just a name. So remember it, there is nothing technical in it, just a name given to it. So Scrum team, you can just say that, Scott is participant of this. We have Scrum Master. He is the one who manages this team. He is the one who discusses with this team that if there is any improvements required, if there is any road blockers there, so that he can work on it. So he discusses with the team one by one to understand if something is coming in their way, so that he can help them better. Business owner, as you can understand, in this case, Richard. End user, in this case, students. Domain experts could be the team members of Richard or others who will be using that. Now, how we will proceed with this Agile? Let's understand that better. We understood the rules, we understood the working. Now, how Agile proceeds? Let's understand. Now, after the requirements are gathered, discussed, team knows about the requirement. Now, product owner will be starting with Agile. That means they will be starting with planning process. In planning, the first product owner will be writing down all the requirements in the form of, we call it as epics and stories. What is epic and what is story? Let's understand that. I'm going back to the example which I've given you. Let's say Richard saying that I wish that my application should be developed in such a way that users should be able to search for the courses, enroll for it, and should be able to pay online, and I should be tracked their attendance and all that stuff over there. And I also want online chatting portal also, so that I can assist them with chatting. All these requirements, from browsing, then enrolling, then you can say one more after browsing, I can add finding training options, enrolling, paying. Then after that, they should get the confirmation. And then tracking their progress. And lastly, I want the chat feature too. Let's say these are the features Richard is looking for his website. Browsing. Student should be able to browse for a particular course. He should be able to find the training options on-site, online, virtual. He should be able to enroll. He should be able to pay online. He should get the confirmation. Progress should be tracked. Let's say Richard also wants to implement the chat feature. Now, these are the high-level requirements. Now, these are the requirements we have over there. In browsing also, there are many other factors. Browsing by category, browsing by keyword. Okay, so let's say this is the main feature. Under this feature, we have different requirements. So epic means high level requirement. Guys, browsing is a huge requirement which can be divided into small requirements. So this could be considered, in this example, this could be considered as epic, which is high level requirement, and which are divided into small requirements. And the small requirements are called stories. This is a terminology, guys. This terminology we use in Agile. So the main requirement, the feature, high level requirement, which could be divided into small requirements, is called epic. This is epic, this is story. This epic is divided into small requirements, and those small requirements are called stories. So product owner's job is to write epics and stories. And he will be writing in a module called, guys, the place where he is writing epics and stories is called product backlog. So you can say here, this is called product backlog. As the name suggests, guys, backlog, where everything is sitting. It's a backlog where lots of things are sitting and they are not planned yet. So those things are called backlog. So product backlog means product owner will write all the stories and epics in it. You can just consider it as a folder, as a module, but this is what they call it, where epics and stories are sitting. You can say section is called product backlog. So product owner is responsible for that. Now product owner will talk to Scrum team and Scrum master that, we got these requirements. Let's start with planning of these requirements. So before starting anything, they plan how they will be working on it and which requirements are to get the website started first. Then we will add the rest of the requirements, because chat feature, let's say, it's not that important. It could be added later also. Creating a website is the first thing. And in that website, first, students should be able to find the courses. Students should be able to get enrolled and should be able to pay. So most important requirements are discussed first so that we can get started with the project. And then in later releases, they can go ahead with the rest of the features. But first, they are focusing on the most important features. Best thing about Agile methodology is, let's say Jenny promised Richard that we will be delivering the product in 2 to 3 months. Now this 2 to 3 months, this release time, 2 to 3 months will be further divided into small sections. Like 2 to 3 months will be divided into 2 weeks each. So 2 weeks time, then again 2 weeks, then again 2 weeks. And this complete 2 to 3 months will be split it into 2 weeks duration. Now this 2 weeks, so we as a team in 2 weeks will be implementing this feature only. Then the second feature in 2 weeks, then the third feature in 2 weeks. So this timeline, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I mean, depends upon the company. It should be 2 weeks, guys. That is recommended, but we can go from 2 to 3 weeks timeline. So 2 weeks, this time slot is called sprint. Let's say when you go for, let's say you're doing exercise, what do you say? Let me just complete 2 sprints of it. What is sprint? Sprint means the cycle. So one cycle, these 2 to 3 months duration, the total duration is divided into small cycles. First cycle is for 2 weeks, second cycle is for 2 weeks, and then 2 weeks. And this cycle is named as sprint. So sprint is a time for a particular, you can say, small sections they have divided. So the complete sprint is of 2 weeks, then again second 2 weeks, and then again 2 weeks, and so on, rather than just working from 2 to 3 months. Because guys, as you can understand, if the target is longer, we always miss the track. This was the phenomenon behind it. This was the fundamental behind that. They said, okay, let's just make small targets. Then making a big target, let's just make a small targets. Instead of just focusing on 2 to 3 months, let's split this 2 to 3 months into 2 weeks cycle and work feature by feature, and also those features which are important first will be implemented, then the least important features will be implemented. And this cycle, this 2 week cycle, is called sprint. As you guys understand now, as we just discussed, what is sprint? Sprint is a time duration. So the complete release is divided into small segments, small time slots, and those are called sprints. So first, we start with sprint 0. Guys, it depends upon the company. Some starts directly with the sprint number 1, and some starts with sprint 0. What is sprint 0? In sprint 0, there is nothing we are doing practically. That doesn't mean that we started developing or testing the product. No. In sprint 0, we are actually preparing for the next upcoming sprints. So sprint 0 is considered as a preparation sprint, in which the preparation of upcoming sprint is taken care of. What are the factors we discuss in sprint 0? So Jenny already made request to his company that, we got the project, we need team for the same. So Scrum team onboarding will start in sprint number 0. That means who will be participant of these teams for this project? It will be that team will be created in sprint 0. Team consists of developers, testers, architect, and business analyst, of course. The business analyst was working on it. Then discussion of environment required will be there. So once the onboarding of team starts for a particular project, everything is done. Now Jenny, along with the business analyst, Jenny will discuss the requirements with the team. Also, Jenny will prepare product backlog. As we just discussed, what is product backlog? Product backlog is a module where Jenny will be writing epics, stories. So she will be preparing epics and stories, and she will prioritize the stories also according to the minimum viable product. So whatever is most important to keep the website started, that will be prioritized first, and then the least important requirements will be there in product backlog. So 2 things they do in product backlog preparation. Product owner will be doing that. It's a responsibility of Jenny in this case. So she will be writing epics, stories, and then she will be prioritizing them according to the requirement of client as well as market study. After all this, discussion of environment required is done. So what environment is required for this type of project? What should be the front end? What should be the back end? How much hard disk and all that stuff is discussed. So software installation, software is required. From testing point of view, what are the tools required? From development point of view, what is required? And what should be the system requirements, hard disk, front end, back end. All those things are discussed in Sprint 0. Then they start up with something called Sprint 1. So let's understand that when we're working on Agile methodology, we deal with these terminologies. Number one is sprint planning. As we just discussed, it always happens, it takes place at the start of the sprint. In the beginning, before sprint number 1, we did sprint number 0, just for the planning. Just for the planning of the sprint, like what are the most important requirements? Let's just get ready. Let's just get prepared for the sprints. So for that, we did sprint 0. But what actually sprint 1 is, it takes place at the start of the sprint for planning purpose. Like what should be the requirements, which should be part of it, and all that stuff, which I'm going to discuss one by one with you, that what we do in sprint planning. But these are some ceremonies. So remember this terminology. This is called Scrum ceremonies. Scrum meetings, Scrum ceremonies. So these are the ceremonies we do in Scrum, in complete Agile methodology when we are doing the sprints. First is sprint planning, as I've discussed with you. Second is daily Scrum. Third is sprint review. And then sprint retro. And then we have backlog refinement. Let me discuss these one by one with you. So first is sprint planning. In sprint planning, now let's say we did sprint number 0. Now we will be starting with sprint number 1. We already have created, Jenny has created a product backlog, environment is decided, team is structured, even the Scrum Master is assigned to this team. So everything is done. Now, first step is we will start with the sprint planning. In sprint planning, first of all, Jenny will read all the requirements and will make this team understand the requirements along with business analyst. They both will be discussing the requirement with the team. Now, team, after understanding the requirements, and if team have any questions also, they will be directly asking to product owner and business analyst in this case. So if they have any questions, they will be asking. They will make sure that all the questions and doubts are clear. And then requirements out of the product backlog, the minimum viable requirements will be taken out. So let's say first registration is must, right? Student should be able to register. He should be able to log in. He should be able to browse courses by categories. So these three, after refinement of the complete product backlog, as refinement means they will find out that which particular requirement is most important. That is called refining. So refinement of product backlog, what they did, they took out these three requirements which they wish to implement in sprint number 1, which they decided that it should be 2 weeks. So they decided, and 2 weeks excluding the weekends, guys. So mostly it is 10 days because Saturdays and Sundays are not included. So 10 days, the time slot they have given to these three requirements. Now, not only that, in sprint planning, number 1, the requirements are discussed to the team. Number 2, product owner and business analyst will ask team that, can you please tell, what do you think, how complex these stories are? I call it stories because you understand story means sections which we need to divide. So how complex these are, whether we can do it in 10 days or not. If not, then how much we can do in sprint number 1 if it is 2 weeks. So all that discussion, these product owner and business analysts along with Scrum Master will do with team. Now, let's say in this team, let me just clear this. As you can understand, in this team, we have QA, we have developers, we have architect, but mainly these will give the points to every story. So let me explain this to you. So here, first story is registration. Let's take an example. Let's say first is registration. Now, QA is there. Developers are there. Let's say there is one more QA. There is one more developer. What they will be doing is they will be giving points to this story, how complex this story is. Now, of course, guys, we all are working in same company, so there should be in same type of company. Let's say if I want to join some other company, I must know uniform way of giving numbers to this story if I have to tell the complexity. So there is one way. I will be explaining this way to you. There is one way of giving story points to a particular story, that is called story points to a particular story, and those points will decide how complex the story is. So in order to measure the complexity of the story, we give points to the story, and those points are called story points. As I've told you, we all have to be uniform in it. It's not like that my way of giving story point is something, your way of giving story point is something, and developer has some other way of giving story points. No, we must have a uniform way of giving a story points. And that way is called, we give it in a series called Fibonacci series. This is a series, guys, nothing to deal with Agile, nothing to do with Scrum. This is a series, this is a mathematical series. This is how it works. So first number is 1, second is 2. Now how 2 came? So current value plus the previous value. So in this case, current is also 1 and previous is also 1. So 1 plus 1, 2. 2 is my current value, previous is 1. So another value will be 3. Now the third value will be 3 plus 2. So current plus previous, you can write down the formula, current value plus previous value. So it's going to be 5. Then we have 5 plus 3. Next value in this series will be 8. Next value in this series will be 13 and so on. So 8 plus 5, 13. So this is how actually Fibonacci series work. So current plus previous will be the next number. Now, more the complex story will be, if you think story is very complex, higher the number you will be giving to it. So let's say tester QA thinks registration gonna take him. So QA is thinking from his point of view, from testing point of view. So he thinks registration gonna take him. It's quite complex. It has a lot of dependency on some of the features. So let's say he gives this complexity as 8. Now developer thinks, no, it should be at least 13. Now other developer thinks, no, it should be, I think it should be 5. So all will be giving points to this story. All of the team members, Scrum team members will be giving point to the stories according to this series. Higher the number, more complex the story is. There could be, guys, more than 13 also, like 21 and so on. But usually, if it is more than 13, we break story into 2 points. That means if it is, let's say, 21, then we break those stories into 2 parts. So we hardly go more than 13 because they consider more than 13 is very complex stories. So hardly we go more than 13. But if any story is more than 13, then that story needs to be split into parts, rather than moving higher in it. So this is how, this is recommended. Now it depends upon companies. I've seen companies who had sprints for 7 weeks also, which is not recommended. It is totally taking away the main reason why Agile was created. But I've seen actual companies doing so. So it depends upon company, but this is recommended that if it is 13 and you think it should be 21, then you should not be giving 21 to the story. In fact, you should be splitting the story into 2 parts so that you can go with the minimum number. So higher the number, more complex. Now let's see. Now QA also gave the points, developer also gave points, and other team members also gave points to the story. Now, Jenny and business analyst, they all are sitting and monitoring that what you have given. Now they will be going with something which complete team agrees with. So we all are giving different numbers, but let's say we all agree on 13. All team members agree, okay, let's just go with 13. So then 13 will be final points for this registration. So 13 will be the final points for the registration. So the final points are 13. Same for login. They will be doing a discussion and they give the number to it. Let's say they give 8. All of time, common number, they assign 8. Then browse by category is my next requirement. And let's say for this, they are giving again, let's say 5. So these are the story points for each and every story. Story points. Now they ask you in interview, how you estimate the story points. Guys, it depends upon the complexity. As a tester, I will be looking into the story and I'll see how many test cases I'll be writing on it. How complex the story is, whether the story has dependency on some other a feature also. So on these bases, we will be deciding the story points. Now, total story points like 13 plus 8 plus 5. So you can say 13 plus 13. It's 26. Let's say 26 is my total story points for this sprint. And this is also known as velocity. So total story points for a sprint. As a team, we decided that this is the total story points. This much we have to cover in 2 weeks, excluding weekends. We will be covering these 3 stories and this is the points. Now in this complete sprint, so let's say this is my sprint in which I have to cover these stories. Guys, this sprint will be for 2 weeks, as I've told you, 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, developer have to develop it and we must test it. And at the end, after 2 weeks, we must deliver these requirements, these features. So this is the strategy. This is the agenda behind every sprint. After completion of the sprint, that product should be ready. We should not be going back to this. In any case, we have decided that we will be covering these 3 stories in 2 weeks. Let's say somehow something happened that we were not able to cover this story. Browse by category in these 2 weeks, which must not happen. So if in interview somebody asks you that what you will be doing with the leftovers in a particular sprint, first of all, it must not happen that you should have any leftovers, because after discussion only you went for this. And if we are having some leftovers, that means if any of the story is left, that story will be first discussed, that what we will be, as a team, we will be discussing what we will do with this story. So this story might go back to the product backlog where Jenny has written all the stories. So this is product backlog. Now guys, this complete process of giving the story points, preparing the sprint is called sprint planning. So this process is called sprint planning. In this, now let me give you a review again. In sprint planning, first of all, product owner and business analyst will read the stories in front of the team and the scrum master. After understanding the stories, if team have any questions, team can ask Jenny as well as can ask business analyst. That means product owner and business analyst, and they will be answering those questions. Now, there will be points allocated to the stories on the basis of Fibonacci series. Higher the number, more complex the story is considered. As a team, we will be giving story points to it. Now, whatever the common story points team agrees on will be the final story points for a particular story. Total story points is called velocity. Now, team have done the sprint planning and they can get started with it. After this, we have this ceremony called daily scrum. Daily scrum, I really like this daily scrum concept because this is to increase the togetherness or bond of the team. In daily scrum, the entire team, first 15 minutes before starting the project, they sit together and they discuss what they are supposed to do today. What is their agenda for today? What they have completed yesterday. so that they are on time, they can understand the progress, and they can also understand if there are any blockers. Who are participants of this daily scrum? Might be product owner or business analyst, but not mandatory. But always Scrum Master will be there and the Scrum team will be there in daily Scrum meetings. Scrum Master and Scrum team will be participants. Let's say as a tester, I had some issues. I really thought that this one of the requirements is not right, or it is blocking me. Something is blocking me in a way. So my job is to discuss it with the Scrum Master. I'll discuss with Scrum Master and I'll say, you know what, this is blocking me. Now Scrum Master will take me separately and he will be discussing what are the blockers I'm facing, and he'll try to remove that from my way. This is the job of Scrum Master. Now, after that, we have sprint review meeting. Sprint review meeting takes place at the end of the sprint. Now, of course, let's say after this complete 2 weeks, we completed all the stories. Now here we will be reviewing. The team along with the product owner and business analyst and Scrum Master, we all will be sitting and reviewing the sprint. That means whether we were able to achieve everything. We can also give the demo to product owner in this case, after that, whether all the, say, the features are implemented or not, but I'll come to that later. Last is sprint retrospective meeting. It takes place again at the end of the sprint. What happens in this? Again, in retrospective, guys, in some of the companies, hardly retrospective meeting takes place. It is recommended that retro should be there. What is retro? Sprint retro. Retro stands for retrospective meeting. In this, team will be sitting together along with the product owner and business analyst and discuss what went wrong. What went wrong in my previous sprint? What was the blockers? What I can improve in next sprint when we were planning? All these discussions will take place in sprint retrospective. So it is important meeting because it actually tells you that where you were lagging, if there is any issue in the, if you faced any issue in the previous sprint. If let's say there is any leftover, what is the reason of leftover? Where we went wrong, so that we don't repeat it in the next sprint. Also, we discuss that the sprint, let's say if something is left over, in retro, we discuss whether we can accommodate that in the next sprint or not. If let's say one of the story was left over, then we can discuss whether we can accommodate that in the next sprint or not. And we can send it to the next sprint. There is one term here called backlog refinement. Guys, this could happen. We can say sprint refinement also, or backlog refinement also. This is a process. What is refinement? Refinement means, let's say now everything is done. We will again start planning the next sprint, no? So we have to again start refining the stories. Like what stories we're going to implement in next sprint? Like the way we did in the beginning of the sprint 1. We refined the stories. We found the most important stories. We started working on it. Now the sprint is over. We will get started with the next story. So again, we will be doing the same process. We will find the next stories which we want to implement, provide the story points to it, and then we will get it implemented during the sprint. Every sprint is a complete SDLC. We will understand the requirement, design will be there, we implement it, testing will be done. If there is any defects, that will be given, and then it is ready for the deployment. But now see, the SDLCs are divided into small sections of 2 weeks, then 1 year or 6 months. And client is happy because he's getting the product as soon as possible. Maybe not all the features, maybe all the features are taking 2 months, but we gave most important features in just 2 weeks. Right? Maybe the application is not up and running, but client saw something. Client have this feeling of happiness that somebody is working on my application. At the end, demo can be given to client also, so that client can feel part of the team. So let's say when the sprints are over, retro is done, the demo could also be done. And in demo, participants, business analyst, product owner for sure, but we can also invite client also in it, so that he understands that, how it is going. And if he have some improvements, or he wants to share something with us, he wants to add something, he can tell at that time only. So in this case, let's say Richard was participant of the demos of the features which we want to give. So we gave demo to him. He was really happy with that. And he also gave us suggestions that why can't you add this thing also, that search by category is there. Please add search by keywords also. If somebody is trying to find out software testing or software, so by keywords also they should be able to find it out. So Jenny will be happily taking this improvement and can add in the next sprint. So this is the main fundamental behind it. So, and also guys, just to get back, when the Scrum team will be giving the story points, that process is called poker planning. So these are terms I just want you to know. So when they are giving the points to each and every story, it is called poker planning. That means poker, as you know, what is poker? That we will not get you to know that what we are thinking. So on the basis of that, QA is writing his own points, developer is writing his own points without any discussion. So that's why they just named it as poker planning. So poker planning. This is the one of the terms you should be knowing, and that's all. So you should be knowing what are the different Scrum ceremonies, how they give the story points, and then what is velocity. This is how they implement the Agile methodology. And at the end of the sprints, the product is ready to work. End of the sprint, at least those features are ready to work, and we will be freezing them. So we won't come back to those features to work again, because when the sprint is over, the main agenda is that those 3 features or whatever features you have decided to implement in a sprint should be up and ready. At least client should have something in his hand to get started. So this is the main agenda behind the Agile methodology. So guys, that's all about Agile methodology. Thank you.